table. We've picked up a little table which was just a wooden one. It's very old. It was probably from an op shop somewhere originally, but we're putting on it Artisan Soft Chalk, and we're going to do a little bit of a, you know, sanded finish, rubbed finish. Some people call it chalk paint or chalk emulsion, but Haymes Artisan have brought out a new one called Soft Chalk. And just to give you a bit of an idea, this little table was around about something like that, and that's a varnished stain, quite dark. So a lot of these chalk type paints, they are very good coverage. So in this case we did a light spray of an undercoat, but yeah, you really don't have to. You could give it a very light sand and that would do the job. We have already done a coat of soft chalk onto this little table, and the colour we've used is the white velvet. So a lot of the soft chalk comes in a few different colours. So we've chosen to do this little white table to suit the new area that we're doing at our Miranda store called the Art Passage, which is going to be a new art gallery. So we are just doing a couple of little experiments with this table, but it's coming along quite nicely. So the products that I've got is soft chalk. It's a water-based, easy to clean up. You can apply it by brush or roller. It's up to you. With little intricate areas and grooves, you're probably going to need to use a brush. The other product that you might want is some metho. You will need some sandpaper in different grades, depending on how much you want to get, as in a line effect, as to whether you use a sandpaper that's a rougher one or a finer one. So it's up to you. You can get whatever you like. Sometimes these little sanding sponges are handy because you can just wrap the sandpaper around or use them on their own. They usually come as a medium fine or a medium coarse, so they're good as well. And you need some white cloth. We sell those in bags like this, and they're clean and they're lint free. So if you're using any cloth or anything like this when you're rubbing on wax or rubbing off product, it's a good idea not to have any little pieces of lint because it will stick to the surface. So clean rags, not towels, because they'll leave behind that lint. So all you really need to do is put a coat on, which we've done here, and then you can just rub back little areas. So you can just sand, and by sanding it lightly it really makes it nice and smooth. But the chalk paints are designed to be easy to sand, so you can really put a lot of force behind it by rubbing hard. And you can go along the edges as well, so you can pick out and make the edges look a bit more worn as well. So in this case I've used some metho, and that kind of gives you a little bit more of a rubbed finish. I'll bring it over a little bit so you can see there it's more rubbed back. So I'm going to do a little bit more. And you can do it wherever you like. You don't have to have a method or a pattern. And you'll just see there that pretty much rubs away really quite easily. So methylated spirits will dissolve water-based paint. So that's another thing that you can use metho for, is if you've got an old surface at home and you need to know if it's oil or water-based, just get some methylated spirits on a cloth, give it a bit of a rub. And if you find that some of the paint colour comes off onto the cloth, then it's a water-based paint that's been used before. That's a little tip. So on the legs on this one, it's quite grooved, so I'm just going to lightly sand those so that we get a little bit of the wood colour coming through, just here and there. Don't want to really overdo it. And the thing is, if you make a mistake, just paint over it with the same product. Soft chalk, just paint it and then let it dry and start again. You just might mean that you've got maybe one or two more layers that you have to sand through. We've only put one coat onto this So it's a reasonably thin coat, but it does have really good adhesion. So it does allow you to sand it so that when you feel the surface, it feels quite smooth. So I haven't done the top yet, but if I just sand that a little bit there, creates like quite a lot of dust, and that's quite smooth now. So when I've finished doing this, you can use either a wax to seal it, you can leave it as it is, or you can use a water-based clear like this Haymes Aqualac GP clear. So the difference between a water-based and an oil-based, the water-based won't change the colour. An oil-based will make it yellow, so it's not necessarily ideal to use an oil-based on there. If you choose to use a wax, you're going to get more of a hand-rubbed finish. The difficulty with a wax, and that looks nice, but if you want to redo it down the track, it is a little harder to sand. So just think about the overall appearance that you want, you know, and whether that's fine with you. In some surfaces it might be better to use a water-based one. We're only going to use a satin finish so that it's not real shiny, but you could use a gloss. Generally the higher the shine, the more durable it is, but this is fine. 2 coats of this will give you a nice durable surface that we can dust and keep it clean, and put paint tins and things like that on top of it. It will be perfectly fine. So I'm going to come back later when I've done a little bit more on this, a little bit more sanding, and it might be tomorrow. Thanks. So I've now got the table how I really want it. I'm not going to do too much more sanding to it or rubbing, but I'm coming now to do the top. So I'm just going to give it a light sand, and it's very dusty, so I'm just going to wipe the dust off with a damp cloth. I just want to get it smooth, and it's really nice and smooth. So you can see the dust. Creates a lot of dust, the chalk paint, and I've got a cloth that I've just dampened, and I'm just going to wipe that over and get all of that dust off. And now I've got it really nice and smooth, so I'm just going to do some rubbing on there with the metho and a little bit of sanding. As I said before, the sanding will give you a little bit of a scratchy appearance.
Coming on home, she was old as the hills and worn as a train on rails of old steel. She was old as the hills. She had a bullet in her bonnet, the last that she owned, and a gun in her pocket. Keep her strong as she runs. She went fishing in the shallows for years and minnows. But she dried up so nicely, oh, so sweet and spicy. She was old as the hills. These things that I'm most worried about is that you might come down and take is every night comes down and take you away. Every night come down and steal you away. Is every night come down and steal you away. Silver coffee.
Okay, so I've decided to stop sanding now, and I'll just give you a little bit of a look before we put the clear varnish onto it, which is going to be the Haymes Aqualac GP water-based. So I've decided just to stop just a couple of marks here and there, just to give it a little bit of an aged appearance. And you'll see the legs there. On the edges. The colour that we've used is the Haymes Artisan Soft Chalk White Velvet. And we'll come back soon. Okay, so now I'm up to the part of putting on the water-based clear. As I said before, the water-based doesn't change the colour. So this being a white, we want it to stay white. I've dusted it down, got all the dust off it. That's really important to do that. Giving this a really good stir. This is an example as to why you can't just shake paint. You have to stir it. There's a little bit of resin that sits on the bottom, and it will be like a thick substance, and that needs to be mixed through properly. So this is the type of product that looks white and then it will dry clear. So a good stir. At least a couple of minutes. And that's looking a lot better now. And then a really nice synthetic bristle brush, very soft. The synthetic bristle allows the water-based paint to flow off it, so it's less likely to give you brush strokes. So these are good really for water-based enamels as well, and also oil-based, but that's the new type of brush. So I'll be using that one. So a good stir. If you use a clean paint stirrer, you're not going to contaminate the paint either. So a nice new one's good. I'm going to start on the legs, and then I'll do the top last. And this is only going to give us a satin sheen, so that it kind of looks authentically old. And I said before about the wax. So when you use a wax, the wax dries a lot harder. It can be a little bit sticky. So you have to make sure that if you're using a stucco wax or a beeswax, that you have to apply it sparingly and use a lint-free cloth to put it on with, and then another clean lint-free cloth to actually buff it. To make this a little bit easier in doing these little intricate areas, you could turn the table upside down as well, so long as you keep this nice and clean, don't get that marked. So you could do that. I'm not going to worry because it's only a little piece. Okay, so now I've done a coat on the legs and the rails, and I'm up to doing the tabletop. I most likely will do 3 coats on the top, and the product is quick drying because it's water based, so you can do it quite quickly depending on the weather, but I'd leave it a couple of hours between coats most likely, and give a water based coating a bit of time to cure and toughen up before you put anything harsh on top. Alright, so just with your brush, just nice easy strokes across the top.
We shouldn't kiss and tell when it's so good, yeah. You walk up to me like a stranger, girl. day.
It's always good to layer off just with the tip.
Well, you listen to me here and now, 'cause I'll lay it down so don't complain. Ooh, it'd be good to get together, girl, but it'll be so hard to maintain, 'cause it seems like now, whoa baby, things are changing now, and I can't tell where I'll be from here on out. Ooh, it's hell knowing that for now we should kiss and tell when it's so good, yeah. I told you already, girl.
Just around the edges a little bit.
Whoa, I was so gone, but that sweet, sweet love, yeah, it had me hanging on so strong. I know now, girl, that I can stand alone. I was put here on this earth by myself, yeah. Whoa, I gotta keep moving on, 'cause it seems like now, whoa baby, things are changing now, and I can't tell where
It's a bit hard to see where you've been because the water base doesn't change the colour too much, so you've kind of got to look at the light on an angle and see where little bits that you might have missed and just touch those up. And we'll let that dry and come back later. Okay, so it's dry enough now to do a second coat. I have just given it a bit of a light sand because it was a little bit rough after the first coat. My brush, I've just wrapped it in a plastic bag just to keep the air from getting to it, and that way you don't have to worry about washing it out until you're finished. So I'm going to do another coat. I'm going to open the tin, come back. It's given it a nice, elegant sheen. Not too much, but nice enough to be able to wipe over. If you're applying water-based paint finishes in the warmer weather, you need to make sure that you do it before it gets too hot, or inside in air conditioning it with a little piece like this, because it makes it hard to brush it out. Today's conditions, autumn day, it's not too humid, it's quite good. It's warm but not too bad.
Time is the only thing that makes us feel alive. We keep this love in a photograph. We make these memories for ourselves, where our eyes are never closing, our hearts are never broken, time's forever frozen still. So you can keep me inside the pocket of your ripped jeans.
usually on the ends that that happens.
Loving can mend your soul, and it's the only thing that I know. I swear it will get easier. Remember that with every piece of you.
And the second coat's done, and we'll leave that to dry, and I'm going to put a third coat on just because it's the tabletop. The rest of it has only had one coat done, and I'm happy with that. It's an ornamental piece, and as I said, it's going into our Miranda showroom, our wallpaper showroom, which is going to become part of our art gallery. So if you wanted to follow us about the art, you go to the Instagram page, the.art.passage, and from there we're going to be putting all the information about our new art space. Obviously you can still follow us at Crockers Paint about all the wallpaper. We'll be doing all the information about the art gallery, and also Art Is to Exist, the Instagram page for Corinne, the artist, and she will be in control of our new art space at our Miranda store. So once this is finished, we'll come back and have a bit of a look at it. Okay, so we're back for the final coat. So we've done 3 coats. Well, I'm doing the third coat now, and once that's done, it's going to be left to dry, and the project is going to be complete. It's so easy to do. Go out, get yourself a little piece of furniture from somewhere off the side of the road. If you've got an old piece that you don't like at home, just put some paint on it. Make it look different. This stuff is so easy to use. You don't have to sand this to get the rubbed appearance either. You can just leave it, put it on and leave it as a nice soft matte finish if you want to. It's not as easy to clean if you don't put a sealer on it, but if it's sitting somewhere that it doesn't matter, then you just leave it. This is going on really easily because the third coat just glides on, it's already sealed. Okay, so that's done. So all of these products are DIY. It's so easy to do. Go and get some stuff and paint it. It's so much fun. It's creative. It's good for your mind. It's good for your soul. Get in there and do it.